bugging me that supposedly that early morning trip back out to where Maddie had been left, that was done by Stearns, was done in Jenn's car. To me, that seemed odd because at that point he still had his own car. And we had heard in one interview from Jenn that she didn't allow him to drive her car because of insurance. And then in another interview, she's quite calm about saying, well, yeah, he took my car out, I know, because the seat was moved back. And there's no reference there to the fact that there wasn't insurance for him to drive that car. She was quite calm about the fact that he had driven her car, almost like it was just common practice for him to drive her car. Or perhaps there was truth in her saying, no, he doesn't drive my car because it's not insured for that. And perhaps it wasn't Stern who drove out to where Maddie's remains were early that morning. That's been speculated. How can we be certain that it was Stearns that drove out to where Maddie had been left in Jenn's car? How do we know that it wasn't Jenn going out for one final goodbye with her daughter? And that's something that was discussed by people. But then I thought about it. If you had access to your own vehicle, but you were going to go out and do a late night drive to a location that was a bit of a rural location, a location where the day before you had gotten a flat tyre, would that be an issue? He only had what they referred to as the donut on that back wheel of his car. Now, my understanding of a donut is that it's one of those El Cheapo type of spare tyres that isn't the same size as regular tyres. It's more of a wedge. So it's not the same quality tyre as the standard tyres on the vehicle. Now, I mean, my experience in the past, if I've had a flat tyre and I've swapped it out, I've always been pretty damn quick to take it and get it repaired, and always felt nervous about driving without a spare. Because if you get another flat, you're stuck and you're going to have to call for a tow truck. Now, I've never had vehicles that have those super thin spare tyres. One of the things that I look at when I'm buying a new vehicle is what sort of spare tyre it has. Because obviously here in Australia, I mean, even for me, were I to drive down to Melbourne, that's a over 300 kilometre round trip. If I got a flat tyre partway down, then I would either have to be delayed down in Melbourne while I got it fixed, or I would have to drive all the way back home again on a spare without another spare on the off chance that I got another flat tyre. Were I driving on a donut, I sure as hell wouldn't want to do that. So for me, I always choose vehicles that have a normal spare tyre. So let's go back to Stearns. He had shredded the tyre that was on his car and was therefore driving on 3 regular tyres and a donut. We know that he contacted his father and said, I had a flat tyre. And he had communicated to his father that he had shredded that tyre. So, as far as we know, there was no time for him to have replaced that tyre at all. So that vehicle, and we know, we've seen from the photos, the evidence photos, the vehicle still had the donut on the back. Now, perhaps Stearns himself isn't quite smart enough to stop and figure out that probably shouldn't be driving too much on this donut because it's not designed to be driven huge distances. But because he rang his father and said, I had a flat tyre, his father seems like a pretty straightforward kind of guy. And he tells it as it is. And I could imagine his father saying, well, you can't drive on that now until you replace that tyre. I could imagine his father being that assertive. Because don't forget, it was actually his parents' car as well. He didn't own that car. His parents owned that car. He was driving his parents' car. So I would imagine that his father would be the sort of person that would say, you can't drive that car now until the spare tyre, or until the shredded tyre has been replaced. Don't drive it on that donut because you'll destroy it and you'll destroy the car. So that goes back to the question of why take Jenn's car out that early morning. Like I said, originally I had suspected that perhaps it was Jenn that went out that because it was her car. And I kept thinking, why? Otherwise, would Stearns take her car instead of his own? But to me it seems logical. If you're driving a car with a substandard tyre on the back to a location where you have made a dump, you don't want to get caught there. If that donut ended up going flat or shredding, can you imagine if you got caught out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night? That would be like putting a big neon sign on top of his car going, guilty. So perhaps it really was Stearns who went out. And perhaps it is true that Jenn was just so out of it that she didn't realise till the morning. And I think in terms of her being cool, calm and collected about him having driven her car, who knows what goes on in Jenn Soto's head. It seems that she is so desperately in need of validation that she will let someone like Stearns do what they like. And if that means he takes her car in the middle of the night because he doesn't want to drive his, she's not going to call him out on it because she wants the validation of him still liking her and still wanting to have that connection with her. Thanks for listening. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think it was Stearns that took Jenn's car out? Do you think it was Jenn that took Jenn's car out? I'd be interested to know what other people think. If you're new, hit subscribe, hit the like, and please leave a comment below. Let's get this video out into the algorithm.